Today I've got an exciting new idea to share with you guys. A no-weld, smooth firewall that could be adapted to any vehicle, not just our 55 Chevy truck project you see behind me. This firewall not only gives you that custom high-end look without requiring welding skills, but for those who prefer the traditional route, it can still be fully welded in. This idea is designed to work for everyone. Whether you're a seasoned fabricator or just getting started in restoration, stick around because this project can 100% take your ride to the next level of cool. What's up guys, and welcome back to INTHESHOPTV. In the last episode, we got a custom door switch wired up to our bed frame so that we can make some cool stuff happen when our not yet installed bed floor goes up and down. Today, however, we move on to a monumental step for me. We put this frame to rest for a little while. We move on to body work. Full disclosure, I am not a fan of doing body work. I'm really good at welding in patch panels and stuff like that and doing metal work and taking care of rust and rot. But I hate all the shaping and the Bondo and the sanding. Even though I can do it, I really don't like it. That doesn't mean I can't make this thing look really cool in the meantime. So just to share my immediate short-term plans with you guys, that cab, I wanna get that to a point where we can get it mounted on our frame and we can get steering in it, brakes, so that we can finally move this thing in and out of the shop, because right now, it's right in the middle of my floor. It's taking up a bunch of space. And we've got another project right back there, which is a 75 Corvette that I've been neglecting for a year while I've been working on this thing. So in order to work on both these things at the same time, I need to be able to move this truck in and out of the shop whenever I need. So I'm choosing to start with the firewall. It's kind of backwards, but I'm just tired of looking at this Swiss cheese, man. So here we are with this hideous firewall. And my initial plan was just to cut this entire thing out, get a new firewall. They sell them online, pre-made, whatever shapes you want, weld it in and be done with it. So as part of that, I started looking at products I'm going to be using going forward. I'm going to be using a firewall mounted brake booster, master cylinder. But when I cut this out and weld in a new firewall, they're all usually like 18 gauge metal. It's just, I don't know, a little bit on the flimsy side. I don't know, just pressing on the brake pedal, having it mounted on the firewall. I really thought it would be kind of cool to have something a little bit sturdier. Now let me turn you guys this way a little bit. This spot right here is roughly where that master cylinder would go. And when you buy those kits, there's an interior part that's kind of a bracket that mounts to the firewall and up into the dash and everything. And then since you have this bead rolled portion where you have a part that's recessed or inset and then these ribs that kind of stick out, there's a bracket plate or a spacer that kind of goes in there to take up that space and add a little more rigidity. So I got to thinking, if I make my own firewall and put it on top of the existing firewall, I'm gonna add extra rigidity, save myself a lot of cutting and putting heat into this 70-year-old cab. Also, when you cut the old firewall out, you really should weld some, braces across here, because then you might get some twisting in the cab. So I kind of avoid doing that. And again, all the welding that I would have to put into here is gonna add a lot of heat. I avoid doing that. So lucky for me, my wife got involved. She came out here and made a template of this thing. So I really like the smooth look of a firewall without the bead rolled pattern and all that, just that kind of really slick looking piece across the front. One of the conundrums you have when you have a YouTube channel is finding the balance between doing stuff for your own vehicle and making cool content for people that are out there that might not be able to do what you can do, or maybe they can and they want to do something beyond what you can do. But I wager there's a lot of people out there that either can't weld, don't have a welder, or maybe they're just kind of a hobby welder and don't feel confident enough to take on a finished job like this. So I thought, let's make a really cool bolt-on firewall that anyone with any average skills and some basic tools can do, using some really kind of dress up cool fasteners and all that. And then I was kind of conflicted. I was like, you know what, is that kind of taking the cheesy way out and bolting this thing on? And the more I started thinking about it, I really just kind of like the idea, for no other reason that I've really not seen it done. So it's kind of gonna be unique. The other cool part about it is that if you were gonna cut out this firewall and weld in the piece that I have, you would still kind of do the same thing. You would drill some holes in it, make some spot welds or plug welds, whatever you want to call them. Or we just cut it out around here, leaving a little bit of a lip where you can butt weld to it and then grind it all down. So this piece is really kind of a cool concept in that you don't have to bolt it on. You don't have to spot weld it. You don't have to butt weld it. It doesn't really matter. So this idea is really going to be, I guess, multi-purpose, right? Whether you're a complete pro fabricator and you want that show car look, or whether you're the average Joe at home without a welder that you want to have a really cool looking firewall, but you don't have the ability to get that, custom shaved, smooth firewall look. Now you can. So the rough template that my wife made is just using some cardstock that you'd pick up from the hobby store. And the outer perimeter is exact. This is not, obviously. We got to trim this up some more. But what I'm going to do is trace this onto this piece of hardboard, and we'll trim out the perimeter and get it in place. And then we'll mark that tunnel to be exact and start cutting that out little by little to get it to a perfect shape. So I've got it loosely in place. I'm gonna do a little bit of trimming right here. So I'm gonna try that. That's why whenever you're making a template, you always make it a little bit bigger than what you think it is so that you can trim it down. You can't add to it, but you can always take away. All right, about 2,000 times shaving it down, you got absolutely the dead on perfect fit up on the perimeter of it. All right, so we've got just this rough tunnel cut out. We're nowhere close to where we need to be, but I've got it set nice and tight up in there. And I think what I want to do next is we're going to take this out, and we got to get all this stuff off of there. We got all these bolts and nuts and all types of crap hanging off here that we're going to have to get ground down to be nice and smooth. So this can fit and lay against it nice and flat so that we can get an accurate measurement for that cut. So these little funny looking nubs up in here in the corners, they're just the little rubber caps that hold that jute insulation on the inside. Just gonna grab them with a China lock and pull it right off. Some are easier than others. All right, so that's just impacted out from the other side. This stays in place. I don't have to take that off there because it sits flush within this spot, and the bolt-on firewall is not going to interfere with that at all. Okay, the only thing left to deal with are these three pass-through grommets right here. As you can see, that a little bit raised from the surface. We're going to have to get those ground down, and then we should be good to go, nice and flat. All right, so we still have our grate fit up, and I've just got it clamped up here in the center. What I'm doing right now is just kind of going around the back and tracing where it kind of rounds out on that tunnel so I can have a line from the inside. All right, so I got our hardboard, or a piece of low-end template transferred onto this piece of 18 gauge cold rolled steel. All right, so back at the template, I've got some pilot holes drilled out for our hood hinges. I just took some measurements from the top of the firewall down, from the edge of the firewall over. Then it's 2 3/4 inches down from there. So I'm gonna go ahead and open these up and see if it fits. All right, that didn't work out. My math was off just a hair. So I'm gonna take our actual piece. What I've done is I've marked the position where I wanna put the top mounting holes. I'm gonna go ahead and center punch them, get those drilled out with a small little pilot hole bit, and then mount it to the top of the firewall where it's gonna be. Then I can come from behind those bolt holes for the hood hinges, and it'll be exact. All right, so I've got it temporarily held up here with some self-tappers. I just used those holes, shot one self-tapper in there, one over here just to hold it for the time being. I'm gonna go ahead and put these two in just to keep things from bending because this is really fragile here, this small piece in the middle. All right, so I got the bolt holes drilled out perfectly in line with the nuts that are back there. on the original Firewall. This one's kind of hard to see because it's dark, but there you go. You can kind of get a look at it. What I did was I just kind of put this magnet up against here and drilled from the inside with a smaller bit so I didn't mar the threads up. I put this magnet over here so I didn't push the metal out and bend it with the drill bit. And then once I got through the small bit, I came around the front. I popped the magnet underneath the new panel to bring it out. And I used a step bit to open those holes up. And now we got just a perfect fit there. So I'm gonna go ahead and make the rest of these mounting holes right now and put some more self-tappers in there just to hold everything in place. So I'm not gonna put one up here in this corner against my better judgment, but you gotta remember we're gonna have that, the hood hinge right here, which is gonna be bolted down to those captured nuts back there, and then that's not gonna move at all. So it's just, you know, one less unsightly bolt to see, even though the bolts I'm gonna use are really cosmetic and they don't really stick out too much. I still would rather just not put an extra hole if I don't have to. So our main piece is cut, it's formed, it's on. Our hood hinge holes are where they need to be, lined up perfectly. I'm really glad that worked out because I was kind of stressing getting that just right. What we need to do now is, you can even see on camera, there's a bunch of scratches just from handling this and putting it on the bench and off, and saws going over it and everything else. So we've got to get this in a finishable state. I've still got to do a little bit more shaping here just to kind of get that edge nice and clean. And then right here, we kind of hang over just a tiny, tiny bit. So I'm gonna take just a hair more off of that and shape that. Then of course there's, you know, we're gonna finish this. We got to get it maybe a little bit of light glaze on it and then some paint. But before we even do all that, we're gonna take it off and we got to prep this firewall that's underneath it, because there's, you know, all this primer that's on here now, and Lord knows what's under there from years prior, even though this cab is in really great shape. We want to get that all down to as much clean metal as possible. And then I'm gonna get that in some kind of rust protective barriers, paint or epoxy paint or something, just because it's gonna be covered with this. We can't see what goes on behind here. We need to give both pieces where they're mating the best chance of long-term survival as possible. We're gonna work on this bottom half of the firewall too. There's a lot of like textured, you know, that bed line, not bed liner, but whatever that paint is, that rubberized coating that's on here, we gotta get that all off. And I'm gonna paint this whole section, I think, as one, in a satin black to keep it protective, and it's gonna look good when we have our hood up, and the inner fenders and all that are gonna be satin black as well. So I think the first thing to do is just to get this new panel off, put it aside, and I think then start working on this firewall itself. Once that's done, we'll finish coat this with a little bit of glaze, paint it up, and I'll show you guys the finished bolts that we're gonna use and how we're gonna attach it. We have our holes marked, but those aren't the final mounting holes that we're gonna use to attach this firewall. Let me know what you guys think so far. I don't know if you're digging the bolt-in firewall thing. I really kind of like it. It's unique. I've not seen it done before. I mean, I'm sure somebody has done it, but I haven't seen it. And I kind of looked on YouTube to see if I was gonna make a redundant video, and I didn't really see anything on YouTube either. So kind of a cool idea if you can't weld, if you don't have a welder, if you're not really good at welding, or just not confident, or maybe you just don't want to, or you don't want to put excess heat in the cab or whatever. The other cool thing about this is that if I end up ever selling this, which I hope I don't, but if there's ever another owner of this vehicle that wants to go back to 100% original, The original firewall is under here and it's gonna be intact except for these tiny little holes right here, which is no big deal to fill. So that's kind of another nice feature of doing this, is that you can keep this kind of modern slick look, but still have all the original stuff underneath. Anyway, if you guys like this kind of content, you find it useful, do me a huge favor and hit that subscribe button, because I'm really trying to grow this channel. And believe it or not, every little like that you guys do, or thumbs up or whatever, and when you leave comments and you subscribe, it really helps this channel a lot more than you think. And I need all the help I can get. We're gonna go on to part 2 of this. And I think I'm probably gonna compartmentalize it into 2 videos. And we'll have it done, I guess, in the second video. I don't know if that's gonna be the next video coming up or not. Maybe it will. I got some kind of cool stuff planned for my son's car. I don't know if you guys are into that or not. He's got a Mustang. I know, it's all Chevy stuff on this channel, but it's a cool little Mustang. It's an older one. You guys might dig it. And it's his first car. He's kind of excited about it. So we're gonna do some stuff to that car soon, this week actually. So hope you guys come back. Hope you like this content. And until next time, guys, I'll see you in the shop.